that?
What are you doing? Oh, don't pick it up.
Why? It's breaking apart.
Oh, my God. What are you doing? Oh. Yeah.
It's like scary.
Let's just leave it, move on. Come on. No, but just let's go, yes?
Good morning. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to
Are you here
Dreamy
to file a
Dreamland.
report?
No. Why not?
I'm really not in the mood for coffee.
It's a good thing it's rum then. There you go.
Please don't touch that.
You know, before I sold my soul to corporate, I was in the military. Yeah. Before I did that, though, I was flying sorties out of Jordan. And there's one base I was on, had this building, no windows, pure surrounded by barbed wire fence. Actually, small men in white coats running in and out of it. We knew they were making something in there. We knew it was bad. Anyway, one night the alarm goes and we get ordered to do a full evac. Everybody out. And I'm running towards my transport and I see these men in white coats trying to get out that building, screaming, crying for their lives. Turns out that fence wanted to keep us out.
Let's keep them in.
Anyway, we get in the air and I see my CO flip open the box that he had on his lap. Had a gray button on it. And he closes his eyes and he starts to pray. And then 6 kilometers out, he decides to push that button. And even that far out, we felt the heat of that explosion. There's 1,100 souls, give or take, vaporized. Just because some idiot spilled something. Now, I know it was a long time ago, but I feel the same thing happened here. Those things, those engineers, they made something they shouldn't have. And they spilled it. It was your turn to push the button.
Why did you?
It's your turn to push the button. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. Hey there, Martin Young. Long time no see, buddy. So here we are in interesting times. And since last February of 2020, I've been saying that 2021 was going to make 2020 look like nothing. And then 2020 got bad, worse, and everyone was pandemicked into their house and shuttled into silos, and now it's the newbies and the normies, and that's the people want it to go back to the old normal, and there are others who want it to be the new, and so we're heading for the new. And that's why we got Joe Biden. If we were going to stay with the normies, we would have gotten Donnie. And we don't realize that the United States is just a corporation of white male oligarchs, a very small group of people. And the Davos crowd are the ones who kind of manufacture consent, as Noam Chomsky talked about, and so yesterday I was telling you multiple streams of stories, and so it was 1980, 87, 88, 86, and I had been doing 1980. I came back from Ireland, and Ronald Reagan was president, and oh, I had nothing ever really to do with my family. You know, my family had a family business, and all my brothers and sisters worked for my dad. And he was a bird colonel in the Air Force, so he ran that business like that. And my brother, the oldest, who basically ran a company for 20 years, built the company up from what my dad had to into something, But the foundation that my parents had was my brother could have never had. So, and everyone got paid very well. And then my parents, were turning into their 70s, and my brother was chafing at the bit to take over, and so they had, War of the Roses, and my father basically said, "Screw all of you. I'm just going to close the business. You all got paid well. See you later. But we're partners." No, you're not. You never read the contract too closely. So they fought and they fought and they fought, and I brought them to a friend of mine who specialized in family business and negotiations, and he worked it out. And so my dad, was no longer there, and so first he wanted me to build him a house, so I did. And then he wanted to start a business. He goes, you always come to me with these great ideas, and I always ignore them, and then I kind of rue the day, because back in the day when my parents lived in New York City and had lived in this place called the Imperial, they had the option of buying their apartment for like nothing, because they, and the company just wanted to get out of it and just amortize the whole thing amongst the people who lived there. And it gave him unbelievable, like he was paying $600 for a 3-bedroom, 21st floor with a balcony and a working fireplace and a little room, back door entrance for the maid. I mean, it was an amazing apartment, windows all the way around, really gorgeous. He was paying $500, and that included gas and his electric. It was pretty amazing. It was 1975, I guess, maybe even earlier, 73. And they went condo co-op, right? And they offered him that, and they were going to hold the mortgage, and he would pay $300 a month instead of $500. Well, I'm not going to do it. I'd have to do what they said. I'm not going to do that. So I went to another place, and I said, Dad, you should. I mean, this is a ridiculous deal. Let me buy. Give me the money. I'll die. Oh, you don't know anything. You're just a kid. Blah blah blah. And so, 10 years went by, and I saw an article in the Wall Street Journal. I used to read New York Times, Washington Post, um, Financial Times from London, and the Wall Street Journal. Those 4 newspapers. I was living uptown. I was living with the smartest human, Christine B., and she was developing. In the movie guys who do all the animated films, their little logo is a lamp. Well, that was her PhD thesis. She was the first human to make a algorithm to render a 3-dimensional object in digital space, right? And it could move in any direction, right? The beauty of her algorithm, you have to write another algorithm for it to do this, it did it all. Anyway, I was living with her. She was working for GE and NBC, and she was, building NBC's digital platform for digital effects. And so she was like a racehorse, And I met her at a party, and everybody was like showing off how smart, and I was wearing like a T-shirt like this, and pants like this, my general outlook, cheapest stuff I could find. It's amazing what rich people would throw away. I had a business called Urban Anthropology. We would just go through dumpsters of rich people and then sell it in Soho. We had a kind of used to be a garbage dump, a place for garbage trucks, and so um, we just would go in my big truck and go, on Thursday nights and go get stuff from the rich people on Fifth Avenue and Park Avenue and uptown, and we'd sell it down there in Soho before Soho became Soho, and one of our partners was Olga Kluver, and my friend Richard Rocket. He was a fireman who had a bad accident. He fell through a floor burning building, and then he couldn't fight fires anymore. So he taught people how to fight fires. So he would go up to the South Bronx and pick a building and then set it on fire, and they practiced putting it out. But that's where the rich people lived. And I met him at Cooper Union. He was going to school to be a architect after his accident, and he had just a love for architecture. So he was setting these buildings on fire and putting them out with his students, and they had amazing mahogany staircases and just unbelievable stuff. So he started ripping them out, and then he came to me. He said, "Hey, can you get any people?" Because by that time I was living in abandoned buildings and fixing them up and putting homeless people in, and so we would go up there with a bunch of folks, and he would pay them like $40 a day, and we would rip big staircases and mahogany this and oak that and marble this and marble that, and we'd take it down to the warehouse and we'd sell it to rich people who were going to put it in their condos. Anyway, so that's what I was doing, and so then, like I said, my dad wanted me to build a house, which I did on Shelter Island, and then he bought another piece of property near in the Mauritius, and but not in the Mauritius, in what's it called, Rensenburg, an old like pre-revolutionary farmhouse with a nice thing, and people had updated it over the years. It was fairly nice, but it was like built on dirt, a log cabin built on dirt. So I jacked it up and put a foundation underneath it, and re-plumbed it, and electrified it, and it was a really nice job. And then he sold it to some folk, and he cut the property in half. And there was a big barn that was built during the Civil War, and I took that apart and removed it and built a brand new house that looked just like the old barn, but was brand new, big basement and knew everything. But I made it look like a post and beam house on the inside, because I would take those old things and just slice them up so they don't, instead of being this thick, they'd be like, anyway, it was beautiful, right? And then the '86 collapse happened, and at that time I had, we had started this real estate development business, and I had bought, when the crash happened, a farm, 100-acre farm, right on the Great South Bay, right in the Mauritius, right there to Southampton. And just a little stream. And all I had to do to go onto that road in Southampton that went along the beach was built a little bridge, and there were on the other side in the Mauritius, it was a street that had about 6 of these little GE houses, like kit houses that were built in the '60s for, factories, who were doing pretty good and wanted their little docha out in eastern Long Island. So I bought those, and I bought those and the property for like nothing. And I fixed them up, and this is way before Airbnb. And the yuppies, I would advertise on, boards, and they would rent them out for the weekend. And I was making, and this is during 1984 to 6. I was making $400 a weekend for each of those houses, and I was pocketing that. And then I was, developing that 100 acres to be right on the Great South Bay, right on Southampton. I was going to build a little bridge. I was getting the variance for that, and it was going along nicely, and I was taking down buildings. And how I got that bridge was, um, Eastern Long Island was more New England than New York, and because it was just across Long Island Sound to New England, and the fishermen and all those guys would go there. And so there are all these old farms, like up until the '90s. Long Island was growing more potatoes than Idaho, and so and some morons started to burn these old buildings that were from revolutionary time, and Civil War time. And I got the state to fund me to go take them down and transport them to this property and turn them into houses that looked just like those houses that were built in revolutionary time, and Civil War time. And so all of that wasn't costing me any money. Plus, I got the variance to build the bridge to go onto the county road, and it was all looking great. And I knew that as soon as the '90s hit, the economy would, because that's us, a dump and jump, dump and jump, dump and jump. Because we have this economy that isn't based on anything except consumption. And the in between finances. If you ever saw that Superman movie where what's his name, the black comic, the guy who set himself on fire. He played an accountant, and he was working on a computer, and he asked his boss, "So you did all these accounts here, and there's like a few pennies here, and what do we do with a half a penny?" He goes, "Oh, we just forget about it." So he wrote a program where he took all those half pennies and put them into an account of his own, and he was a millionaire overnight and just kept growing exponentially. So anyway, um, that's kind of how our economy works. There is this gray zone, and especially things like the Defense Department. Why is our defense budget, $1 trillion a year? Really? I mean, we spend more on defense than, we had to give the weapons away. That's what's going on in Israel and Saudi Arabia and Africa. So we have flooded all these areas and Europe with weapons. And, that's why the Korean War happened, because we flooded Korea with weapons, because we had a ton of weapons, because we were going to invade Japan, and we didn't. So we just gave all those and let them go at it, right? Because we knew we were going to, we wanted never-ending war. We have been in never-ending war since the Spanish-American War, really since the Civil War. Because we went from the Civil War to the war against the genocide of the Indians and Manifest Destiny, and then we went into the Spanish-American War, where we got all of South America, all of Central America and the Pacific. We got Hawaii, the Philippines, and all those islands out there. That's what we got with them. And that's, we were right on Japan's doorstep. We were like 11,000 miles away, but we were right on their doorstep. And we had a big navy. They didn't, they started to build their big navy during World War I, and they crushed Russia during World War I. Japan did. So, there I was in the midst of that, and my father, and we had a ton, not a ton, we had 4 commercial buildings. We had about 6 rental properties and a bunch of houses that we were going to flip. And I just wanted to rent everything until the market came back up. And even though it was 86, the worst economic, it was worse than 2008, because it destroyed 30,000 banks in America. That's where we went from having 40,000 different banks to having like 11. And all of that contracting of the public wealth into this singular hegemony, what are we doing? What have we been doing with all that money? What we've done, we have created a breakaway civilization. After World War II, the Nazis, not the National Socialists, but Hail Hydra, basically, Germany's bombed into the Stone Age, and that 100,000 or so Nazis escaped through yeah, the Vatican's rat line and through our Operation Paperclip and into Russia and basically made this new world order then. I mean, that picture of Stalin and Winston Churchill and FDR at Tehran in Iran, they made what the world was going to be in Iran, and Iran has always been our buddy. And what better enemy to have than your buddy? And that was Russia, our buddy. The Russian Revolution didn't happen without our backing. Mr. Arm and Hammer, and Mr. Banking guy Rothschild. They schooled those guys and then gave them the money. The Russian Revolution to overthrow the Tsar happened in like 8 cities, not a gigantic place. It took another 20 years for Joe Stalin to, kill everyone into submission. And so, what did that Hail Hydra do? Well, in the 30s and 40s, they were already out in space. If you ever watched Werner von Braun on, he would be on World of Color, Disney's World of Color in the 60s, and he basically said what they were doing, and he defined the whole thing, going to the moon and building a spacecraft that was usable and reusable, and it was unbelievable, right? So in my younger years, I was exposed to the Council on Foreign Relations. I had a upbringing par to none, and there were a lot of powerful people who saw me as a piece of clay they could sculpt into. Cardinal Cushing wanted me to be the rocket scientist for the Pope, and other people wanted me to do their biddings, and I was always very, very, very interested in knowing what was going on, because I intuitively knew that everything that was in front of me was wrong, a lie. I didn't believe any, but I mean, I can remember being 3 and 4, growing up with my grandma, going to all these museums and seeing how they portrayed it, and that wasn't what I saw, in Harlem. I didn't see the black people being what the museum said black people were, and my Uncle Leo was a straight up Mohawk, and he married my mom's youngest sister, who was one of my godmothers, and he was nothing like what was portrayed in the Museum of American Indians in New York, and that's because white guys just steal and destroy people's history. This whole thing about cancel culture, it's true, but everything you ever hear out of the media, like good thing is the Great Society. Well, it was just they used urban renewal to destroy inner cities. The war on drugs. Put everyone in jail. No child left behind, left every child behind. So whenever you hear these euphemisms, that not really. So it's very interesting. There is a guy named Cliff Hyde. Go watch him, because he set up what was going on and what is the pandemic, and I call it the Great Splat or the rebranding. And when Hillary was running for president against Donnie, she was talking about the rebranding, and really what she was talking about wasn't the two 2016 election. She was telling what was going to happen after 2020. So That's where we're at. We're at this kind of rebranding. And so the pandemic is one of the dynamics of it. And we haven't even seen the worst of, what's happened in India is going to be triple that in Europe and the United States. And who it's going to hit the worst is the youngest. It's going to leave us old timers. And then we're going to die. Leaving a very. Do you think America will survive the coming years? Well, America's already, Civil War was the end of America. In 1876, they passed a law giving corporations the constitutional rights and none of the responsibilities um, of an individual citizen. And that was the end of America. And that's why Lincoln was killed. He said, he stood up in Congress, said, over my dead body, after having this war, and that's what the Civil War was about. It wasn't about slavery, because that never stopped. And, the Irish in the North were worse off than the blacks. So blacks were property. And, you own a tractor, you don't drive it into a wall. But the Irish, they were just a cog in a machine. They were used until they wore out and then they were discarded. And they had zero rights. At least black folks had, rights of being property, So I'm not saying that was good or bad, or, I'm just saying this is how it was. And it has been that way ever since. If you got a job, you're a slave. I see all these young people, with all this, and they come to me, oh, I want to know. And I just kind of give them a little taste. And they go, wow. And it kind of makes them really shine. And then they're doing really even better in their corporate job. And they think they made it. They think they got enough. And they don't understand that we are a work in progress. When Moses was talking to burning bush, and the burning bush is, go save my people. And Moses knew that it wasn't to save the Jews or the Hebrews, not the Jews, the Hebrews nation, the 12 tribes from, the Egyptians. No, it was to save the Hebrews from themselves. Because all during the Old Testament, God just keeps wiping them out and starting over again. And then he realizes it's a work in progress. And so anyway, he tells Moses this, and then he says, okay, you can ask me one question. And the most important thing of most questions is, who are you? He wanted to know who the burning bush was. He kind of knew it was, Elohim, but, no one, he kept using different names. So, in the Bible, it says, the burning bush replied, I am that I am, I am. It's like Popeye, I am, No, if you go back to the Greek, what the burning bush said, I am a work in progress and you are my reflection. And that's why you have to go to Egypt and save the Hebrews from themselves. I don't know what Moses was smoking, but he was an interesting guy. So and he wasn't like the character played by what's his name, Charlton Heston in the movies. That wasn't Moses. And that's that's a good example of what we think history is. And that's not what's going on, kids, So basically, what's going to happen between now and 4th of July, I mean, it's already started, The solar wind hack was, the woohoo, this is what's, on your mark, you said go. That was the solar wind hack because they got into everybody's everything, right? And then this pipeline hack. And it wasn't, I worked as a young man as an electrician. I worked out in Oklahoma in the oil fields, not digging oil wells, but maintaining. The oil companies didn't trust the counties for electricity, so they wanted to pay them. So they, had loads of energy, so they made their own juice. And so I went around and in a bucket truck and fixed, line and distribution and motors, for those pumps. And I also worked on the pumping stations where they put the oil into those pipelines. And how it works is, here's the oil well, here is like New York City, Oklahoma, New York City, pipeline, big pipeline. And they can stick different kinds of oil in there. There's gasoline and then jet fuel and then just crude. And it's really very interesting how they do this. And the thing just goes 24/7. And every 15 miles or so, there is what is known as a tank farm. Just hundreds of acres of these gigantic tanks full of gasoline, crude, jet fuel, home heating oil. And the trucks go to those tank farms and truck it to, the gas station or the oil company or whatever, right? And then some more trucks bring it to your house or you go to the gas station to get it, right? So that's how it works. And what those, tank farms are for, they keep them topped off all the time. So if the pipe goes down for any reason, they have at least 5 weeks of undisturbed oil. So the market should never get disturbed like it did. And you can't just stop the pipeline down like the hit of a switch or start it back up with a hit of the switch. No. And they have, there's the main pipeline and then they have other ones next to it that they can shift over to. If there's ever a detour needed, a spill or a break or and so none of that happened with this. This oil thing was more like a B test. And a B test is when you want to know what the public is going to do, you put it out there and see how they react without any kind of real, getting them ready for it or anything. Just do that, right? So we have been, people don't realize all their religions are just like a comic book and also a business plan to make money. But human beings, we have our animal. This little bag here is an animal, right? And then our soul is like the server that brings our spirit, and that is the thing that is God, our spirit, and that lives forever. Not our soul. Our soul is kind of can get used up, but so we are not our bodies, and so we're advertised to death to think we are our bodies, how we smell, how we look, all the rest. And a good example is John, the canary in the coal mine. He's all about how he looks and what he is and what he's got and stuff, and we all have too much stuff. And so I live out in the middle of the woods, and I physically put myself there, so I would have to cut my lifestyle from the stuff-oriented one to my spirit lifestyle, right? Well, cryptocurrency, basically what I think is that one of the other things that's going to happen before or around 4th of July is the internet is going to go down. I live out here in the woods where the internet wasn't really that strong, but you could go to the county seat, to the library, you could go to a couple of restaurants that had Wi-Fi, you can get online and do whatever you had to do. All of that is gone. Not gone, but really bad. The up in the corner where I live in the 3 counties, it's all gone. And there are people who are rich who, when the pandemic came and were doing their businesses from home out there in the woods, feeling they were, safe from the pandemic, and then the internet stopped. And so it's interesting. So if you have cryptocurrency and the internet goes away, what you gonna do? And cash is just as vulnerable as crypto. You look at India, Modi, when he got in, he basically, one day, Friday evening, he told the public, Saturday, tomorrow at 8 a.m., your paper money, your coinage, it will be worth nothing unless you have it in the bank, and you got nothing. People had all their money in the mattress, lost it all. And that's why the farmers who were doing pretty good. And he gave everyone you know, a phone like this. And this is how everyone in India does their business. And so around 4th of July, the internet is going to go down. So your car isn't going to work. All the businesses will not work. All the banking will not work. All the hospitals will not work. And then the pandemic will come back like a monster and make India look like nothing. And the majority of the old people who got the jab, they won't die. But the younger folk who haven't, and the ones who have, they might have a problem. And so, that's coming soon. And then what's going to happen? You see this kind of off to the side. The Defense Department and the Navy and the CIA are all giving slight disclosure about ETs. Well, we are the ET, That is what that server thing is. It's the ET. The Anunnaki came here and took some smart monkeys and turned us into what we are and connected the spirit side of God to us. So God could have an experience. And that's why we're fenced in. The Van Allen belt is a radiation belt that fences us in. So, cryptocurrency, no better, no worse than cash in your pocket because they're both vulnerable and they both disappear relatively soon. And all economy is not about, affluence or getting by. It's about control. And what we really are at is, Republican. There is no difference between Donnie and JoJo. There isn't, and there hasn't been really since George Washington. There hasn't been a politician who really was a righteous representative of the people, and a few of them that have shown up usually end up dead. And there's a guy named Wellstone. He was a senator, and he was righteous, and his constituency knew it, so they kept voting him in. So and he had money, came from a moneyed scene, so he wasn't there to make money. You look at LBJ, you look at Madame Lebowski, you look at virtually any of those guys. They came in pretty cheap, LOC, AOC, any of them. Now they got money because they're at the seat of power and they're being bought off. So the only thing that we can do is to individually do your best. You can't be perfect, but you can do your best. You should spend time praying, breathing, meditating, and everything you do should do mindfully, right? And look at the motivations that you go through. If you get upset or anxious or giddy or anything, you should always be measuring what you're doing, how you're doing, what's going on, etc. And if you can live your life in love's co-creation, that's serving the work, and God's name is work in progress, and that's what we are. So you can be, in service to love's co-creation. That is, God's work in progress, and you're doing all right, no matter what happens, And so someone came, to find me, and they came up the wrong way. They didn't know how to find me, so they came up the way their smartphone, said I was. And there is a miles-long death highway. It's like up a mountain, the backside of a mountain like this, and it was, paved, and then no one used it for 40 years. And so, I live in a rainforest. Torrential rains going down, a blacktop road like that. So there are potholes bigger than your car. And it's built on the side of a mountain. So it's only 7 feet wide and it's getting narrower and narrower. And this moron, she showed up and she went to where, her smartphone said I was. And it was like just a whole acreage of forest and raspberry bushes. And so she's in high heels and she slogs through that. She's all cut up and she finally finds me. She's screaming at me, "How can you live here?" I said, "Why are you even here?" And she goes, "Well, she forgot why I was even there, right?" And she goes, "How can you live this way?" I said, "Because it's beautiful. Look at this place. It's like, Garden of Paradise." But I had to what? I said, "Well, all you had to do was come off the county road and go on a Forest Service road for a tenth of a mile, and then come down a logging road for about, 6 miles. And both of those roads are way better than that paved road because they're not like this. They're more like that. And they're used. So those companies keep those roads in pretty good shape. So, and that's how you have to be with your life. Don't be on a paved road that looks like this. Be on a dirt road that looks like this, and it's taken well care of. That every year they throw some stone on it, and that's what you have to do. You have to take care of your road. See where you're going, right? So realize that you are an incarcerated person, because that's what this bag of water is. This is your prison cell of your spirit. So 41 minutes. What time is it? Oh, okay, I gotta go. So maybe tomorrow I'll do another one. Yeah, as long whenever I'm in a place that I can get a Wi-Fi and talk to you. So hope you guys show up tomorrow. I'll finish the story of Brazil, of Buzios and the Nazis, and Jamaica, the grill. Okay, Mrs. Brown, and how everyone is connected to Mrs. She's 8 degrees. Everyone's 8 degrees to Mrs. Brown. So next time I'm on, it will be Buzios and the Nazis, and everyone's 8 degrees connected to Mrs. Brown. I love you guys. Remember to breathe. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth. Bless us indeed. Enlarge our territory. Put your hands upon our shoulder and keep us from evil, so we will do no harm. Love you guys. See you later.